So it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today, Captain Georgina Carlo-Pat, who's Ilfracombe's Harbourmaster. Georgina spent 30 years in the Merchant Navy, starting as a cook, moving on to be a deck cadet, and 10 years later qualifying as a Class 1 Master Mariner. Georgina worked for 15 companies, on many different types of vessels, mainly as a senior officer, and her career has taken her from the North Sea, the Baltic, the Caribbean, North and South America, and the Arctic and the Antarctic. Must have been amazing adventures. In 2018, Georgina became the Harbourmaster at Ilfracombe. Having lived in North Devon for 25 years, mostly in Croyd, but moving to Ilfracombe in 2020 with her husband and 9-year-old son. Captain Carlo-Pat received an MBE in the Queen's Birthday List in 2021 for services to promoting women at sea, collecting the medal from Prince William at Windsor Castle last year, a day to remember, I believe. After becoming the first female captain in the dredging industry, Georgina then became the first female Harbourmaster at Ilfracombe. So we are greatly looking forward to hearing about a year in the life of a Harbourmaster.
Okay, thank you very much for that kind introduction. You basically said my whole presentation for me, so straight to coffee. Great, that's me, as I was. So that was 2018. That was me in 2018. As you can see, this is what the job's done. But how did I get to be a Harbourmaster? So Ilfracombe, if those that don't know, is a statutory harbour that we come under parliamentary legislation as a harbour. What that means is the Harbour Authority, which in our case in Ilfracombe, it's North Devon District Council, full council, is the Harbour Authority, and they by law have to appoint a qualified Harbourmaster. So there's two ways to be a Harbourmaster. You can come in via the Royal Navy, actually there's three, come in via the Royal Navy, and you need to be Lieutenant Commander or above, or you come in from the Merchant Navy and we need to have a Class 1 Master Mariner. There is nothing above that. That is the highest in the Merchant Navy. Or now you can start within the sector and work your way up and do a HND diploma specifically for Harbourmaster. It's incredibly hard. It's a year in your own time. I'm just incredibly glad I didn't have to do it when I looked at the syllabus. So as already mentioned, I've come in via the Merchant Navy route. And someone told me not so long ago, there's been one other Merchant Navy Harbourmaster here. And I think that was, 60, 80 years ago, I think. So not that many Merchant Navy Harbourmasters in Ilfracombe, but here we go. So how I got to be a captain, if this is going to work. Okay. So as first said, I started as a cook, and this is the ship I started on. This is the USS Gopher State. Very long story, very, very quickly. I ended up working as a waitress in Gibraltar back in 1990. A certain conflict started out in the Gulf. I ended up being the executive chef of the American ship, the USS Gopher State, and off I went to the Gulf War as their cook in 1991. So this is me in the bosun, and yes, that is a sawn-off shotgun I'm holding, because when we got to the Suez, we were under military escort because what we were carrying, we were shipping out Patriot missile systems and various bits and bobs, and some troops and everything. So they didn't have enough armed guards to patrol our decks. So they gave the deck crew the arms and they patrolled. I'm a cook, so I shouldn't have even been holding it. But that gentleman next to me, absolutely amazing guy, but 32 Americans, I'm the only Brit on board. So that was quite interesting. He's actually, doesn't look it, he looks quite young, but he's actually a Vietnam vet. And what he didn't know was that the shotgun was never loaded, but there we go. So I got called into the captain's office when we got back to Gibraltar, and he said, right, well, the conflict's over, we're heading back to the US. That's it, no more work. Because under the Articles of War, under Uncle Sam, he was allowed to employ anybody he deemed fit for the position during that time. And his cook, had walked off in the Azores. So one thing and the other. So I said, okay, thanks, great, had a fabulous time, thank you very much. Oh, by the way, here's your money. I went, oh, you're paying me? Fab. So I got paid quite a few $1,000s because I didn't know all that time that I was actually getting paid for this. You know, so what do you do when you've got thousands of dollars in your pocket? Well, I went to the United States. So, and I went and visited all the people I'd met up and down the United States. And I ended up staying with the mother of one of the engineers from the Gulf State, who happened to be the Maersk personnel officer, Maersk being one of the biggest shipping companies in the world. And she said, if you really, really want to do this, get yourself back to the UK and get yourself qualified. So I thought, you know what? Why not? So I did. So I came back to the UK, 1992, and I got myself a cadetship with Boston Putfords. Boston Putfords is an offshore supply / standby company. Their whole job is to protect the rigs. This is obviously after Piper Alpha, those that remember that immense disaster in the North Sea. Lord Cullen's report came in and said that the rescue ships, the standby ships, were not up to the task. They weren't adequate enough because they were all converted ex-fishing vessels, sidewinders mostly. Sidewinder meaning they used to bring the trawl in from the side of the ship and not launched from the back. So Boston Putfords was the first company, it's the biggest, they had 32 ships, that started to buy ex-supply vessels. And because of that, the accommodation allowed them to start taking on female cadets. So Boston Putfords was the first company, small ship company in the United Kingdom to take female cadets. Myself and my best mate, Mary Ann, were the first two. We never sailed together. They didn't see fit to put us on the same ship together, but we were in the same company. So this is one of my ships. How we worked as a cadet was we did 4 weeks on board and we had 2 weeks at home. And then we came back and joined another ship. So in our cadet ship, we transited through most of the fleet. So that's me as a cadet, and I'm on one of the rescue boats. And that's the best thing about being stuck in the North Sea for 28 days, going nowhere, is I get to play with fast rescue boats. When I first went on board, I didn't know I could be a deck cadet. I thought I was going to be a cook. So I did my 4 weeks and I came back in, sat in front of the director, and he said, well, what do you want to be? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, looking at your CV, you can be anything you want. And I thought, well, in that case, I'll be a captain then, thank you, because they don't do anything from what I saw in my 4 weeks at sea. And he said, okay, then sign me up as a deck cadet. But how they worked it was we were a member of the crew as well. Our cadetship came secondary to our work. So the first thing I did, I got qualified as a coxswain for the fast rescue boats and the daughter craft. And I basically spent 2.5 years going to the North Sea to college, the North Sea to college, gaining what we call sea time, because that's the mandatory requirement before you can go for your qualifications. And in my day, there was a very set requisite. So I needed to have 21 sea months to go for my first certificate. So I gained that and I got qualified as a class 4. It's all changed nowadays, but class 4 meant that I could be a junior officer anywhere, unlimited tonnage, or a chief officer up to 5,000 tons. So I was coming into the third year, well, third winter, I will say, in the North Sea. That's me. When I qualified, I became the first female officer in the fleet. Unfortunately, at that time, Mary was one group behind me. Otherwise, she would have been. I got my sea time quicker, so I got moved up. So that was front page of the Lowestoft News. Made big headlines in the day. I'm not sure whether it was because I was a female or because I looked so young. Looking back, you know, but that was my first ship as mate. The Putford Snipe. All the ships were named after birds, and my favourite ship I used to love being on was the Putford Warbler. We called her the Wobbly Warbler. I just love saying that over the radio. But again, coming into the third winter, and I decided that yeah, it wasn't really for me. Couldn't really do another winter because literally you sat there for 28 days and waited for somebody to fall off a rig, and you couldn't run for cover. You had to stay on site. So all those storms, everything, you stayed there. And I think people might remember a rather famous one that came across the Atlantic in about 1992. They made a film about it. Somebody wrote a book. The words perfect storm spring to mind. Well, we got it in the North Sea as well. And people realize that it came right across and it hit the North Sea. So yes, I went through the perfect storm, the tail end of it, and we nearly sank, but I was only second trip cadet, so I didn't think much of it at the time. I think looking back now, if I knew, I probably would have left then, but I didn't. So I decided to go to greener pastures. So I became chief officer of this vessel. It's the Nordstrand. It's a 5,000 ton combi cargo ship. So we could take 3 different sets of cargo in the hold and up to 2 tiers of containers. And we did from the UK, Newport, all the way down through the Med, a couple of trips up and down the Med, and then back up again. So this is me in my chief officer's uniform when I'm on the cargo ship. As you can see, very practical. That's me hanging off a port. I think that's Italy in the background there. Loved it. Absolutely fabulous. But I'm still talking small ships now, nothing rather big. So during this time, my friend Mary, who I've mentioned, had left the North Sea herself, and she joined the Royal Fleet Auxiliary as a junior officer. So I came off the Nordstrand and I went to visit her. She lived in Brighton, and she needed to go to Com RFA to get her uniform list. So I went with her because I was visiting. So I walked into Com RFA as a chief officer of a small cargo ship, and I walked out of Com RFA as the new 3rd officer in the RFA. Anybody know anything about the Royal Fleet Auxiliary? It is the merchant side of the Royal Navy. We supplied them. This is one of the ships, Razzing. I know the pictures, but the pictures are old, So you go on deployment with them, you're their backup, you do humanitarian relief for them. So if there's a conflict or a war and they're bringing out refugees, they get transported over to us, and then we ship them off and take them to a safe country. So quite diverse and quite interesting in the RFA. That's some of the things that I've done. Me in white, that's me being action officer of the watch, and that's my get up. We used to be 12 hours on, 12 hours off. The one next to that, me in shorts, is the only picture you will ever see me in shorts, ever. And that's the only reason is that because I was told to by the captain. I had to wear the Caribbean whites. The bottom 3 is I was incredibly lucky during my time with the RFA was I crossed the equator for the first time. There was 10 of us who hadn't actually crossed the equator, so we formed the Southern Hemisphere's People's Liberation Front, hence the T-shirt, and the back says "To life, liberty, and beyond." There we go. Anyway, it was an absolutely fantastic day. The captain was amazing. He took my watch. In fact, we were doing so well on time. We were heading down to the Falklands that he stopped the ship, and we basically drifted, and we just had an absolute fantastic time. One thing about the Royal Fleet Auxiliary is it's grey, and it deals with the Royal Navy. And after a time, the two didn't sit very well with me. We weren't compatible, so I decided to start looking. I didn't do anything about it, but I was, I put the word out. Then I was in Collingwood doing my OOQ, Officer of the Quarter course, which is where I'd be responsible for the ammunition, the deployment of the live ammunition on board. Even though I'm on a tanker, we did have 2 mounted guns on the bridge wing, but we should be protected by the Royal Navy in any conflict area. And I received a phone call. So I was kind of given an option. I was due back down the Falklands. During my time with the RFA, I qualified for my next step up, which is a Class 3. Class 3 is a bridging qualification. You don't need it, but it's good to have it. And that was advanced mathematics, principles of navigation, and applied sciences. So that's equivalent of 3 A levels in 12 weeks. So myself and Mary went off and did that. And I received this call, and it was like, would you like to come and work for us? So it was ship back to the Falklands with the RFA, or ship out to the Caribbean on a cruise ship. Guess which one I chose? So off I went and I joined Holland America, again, as a junior officer. That's the Veendam. That was our first ship. And that was called the British ship in the fleet, because just before that was built, the Dutch Navy went to the Queen, the Dutch Queen, and said that they're running out of officers. And she turned around and said, well, the only other nationality I'll allow you to bring onto our ships are British. And then Holland turned around and said, yes, but you can't have our tickets. So I have a certificate of competency. If I want to work on another national ship, I need to get something called a certificate of equivalent competency to allow me to work under that flag. So Holland said no, they wouldn't allow us to have that. So what they did was they built the Veendam and they flagged the ship to the Bahamas, so we could use our British tickets under that flag. And picture next to it, that's me doing gangway duty somewhere hot on Christmas Day. These are things that we do. I did 4 or 5, I was 5 years in Holland America, actually, did a various different ships. And during that time, I went back to college for a year this time, and I qualified as an unlimited chief officer, and I had my master's writtens. So then I just needed to get another lot of sea time. So 21 months to qualify initially, 18 months from that to chief mate, and then another 18 months from chief mate to master. So at chief mate level, you've got your master's writtens, then you just have to go back for a sit down oral. So all the way through this, you have to sit in front of either one examiner or 2 examiners, and you can get questioned on absolutely anything under the syllabus that you've done or have done or training to do. So when you get to captain's level, they can ask you anything they want. And it's so strict with the MCA, you don't get a second chance. If you get, especially when you're talking rules of the road, voyage, navigation, if you get one wrong, you're out. So I was with Holland America. Then I went off and did a few other things. I went agency for a while. I went down to Spain and I did a few things. I worked for ferries agency, and in that time I gained the rest of my sea time, and I went back to, I did Cardiff and I did my master's and I qualified as a class 1 master mariner. When I came back from Spain, I decided I needed to go back to work. I ran an RYA training center and I owned a parasailing boat, and I was a day skipper out of Puerto Banús during my years in Spain. So I came back and I ended up going back to the cruise industry, but not with Holland America. I went back and I joined Princess, Star Princess. This time I came back as a senior officer. We are now in 2005, I believe, 2005-ish. So I came back as a senior officer. So I was a senior watchkeeper. I was in charge of the lifeboats, and I was also named as the Princess cadet manager. So I was in charge of all the cadets across the Princess fleet. I did 3 different trips with the Princess. I did Star Princess, Crown Princess, Tahitian Princess, and then back to Star. Then I was appointed to the Star permanently. I got promoted up to navigator, first officer, hence the 3 stripes you see there. This is me and my gang out entertaining passengers. As if anybody that's been on a cruise, no, that's part of the job. I loved that part. I loved entertaining passengers. I loved sitting down to dinner with them. I loved giving the bridge tours. And in Princess, that we used to do every cruise, not necessarily weekly, because depending on what itinerary we're on, we used to give a navigational talk in the main theatre. So I used to talk to up to 700-800 passengers at a time about how we navigated and what we did. Wait, next. My last trip on the Star Princess was down to the Antarctic, as mentioned previously. At the time, this is 2006, we were the biggest ship ever to go below 60 south. And here's a picture I took while we were transiting New Maya Channel. And yes, they are penguins. They are. Because I was first officer navigator, I had to go and sit on the Antarctic board for a meeting, because if anybody's aware, the Antarctic split like a piece of pie, and there's multiple countries that, you know, look over the piece of pie. So I went to represent the Princess Company and Star Princess in its as a navigator, and I got told by Chile and Argentina that if anything happened below 60 South, we were too big, too many people, can't help us. This is just after one of the smaller cruise vessels had run aground onto an iceberg and had to evacuate their passengers. So tensions were quite high. So the agreement was made that we would go in with another cruise ship. As it happened, on our itinerary, we used to go in with the Rotterdam, another Holland America ship. So we used to go in together. So we knew each other there, but but so far apart, we could help each other, but the passengers thought we were on our own. But we knew we had backup. Absolutely outstanding. I can't explain how absolutely beautiful the Antarctic is. I prefer it to the Arctic. I've been at the Arctic as well. I do prefer the Antarctic. But what I love about this is we had to have a captain of every watch. And that was one of the stipulations. We had 2 ice pilots and we had to have a captain of every watch. So I was designated the 8 to 12 captain. And this is on my watch. And I was coming along and we weren't allowed to stop. We had to keep moving at 4 knots, you know, because of the icebergs and everything. And I saw these black specks and I was like, oh, what's that? I went, okay, oh, slow down, slow down. Like, turn around, go back, go back, go back. And we saw they were penguins. And I went, oh, get a bit closer, get a bit closer. Turn around again. And on the other side, and for the life of me, I don't know where the photo's gone, they'd actually built an ice slide. So they were sliding down this ice slide, swimming around, climbing up this, not that you can, this little ramp they'd made here, and doing it all again. They had their own little fairground. It was fantastic. But that was my last trip with Princess. Decided to go yet again to pastures new. Mainly, I wanted to come home. All this time, I've been, apart from the North Sea, I've been deep sea. I've been away for a minimum of 6 months, well, 6 weeks, up to a maximum. My longest trip was 6 to 7 months away. And you get to a point where you just, you know, want to be closer to home. So I came back and joined Stena. And this is the Stena Pioneer out of Fleetwood, shipping over to Larne. She's a freight ferry, what we call short sea, because I was working 2 weeks on and 2 weeks at home. I started as second mate. It's what you do when you ship companies. You can always start below. And in 18 months, I became the first female captain of Stena. 2 days after that photo was taken, they announced that they were selling all the ships and closing Fleetwood down. I don't know today whether there's any correlation. I don't know. But so I had a quick conversation with the director of Stena and informed that at that time there were no positions in the company for my now position as master. So we decided that fair's fair, no, you know, no disrespect to anybody. I would look. I would then go out and start looking around. Didn't have to wait too long, because before I could even pick up the phone, because this got announced worldwide, I received a call saying, well, we heard what happened. Would you like to come back? And what I went back to was this one, the Windstar. So in my days in Holland America, they also owned the company called Windstar, which is the 7-star sailing cruise vessels. During that time, they'd actually sold Windstar off to another individual, but kept the same office. So we knew each other. And I'd worked for Windstar, helping them out when I was with Holland America. So I went back to Windstar as chief officer of the Windstar, sailmaster, and that's me on the bowsprit of the Windstar. And that was 3 months on, 3 months off. Again, absolutely loved it. During that time, I met my husband on the Windstar. And how to put this politely, because he wasn't of the same position as I wasn't allowed to stay in the company. If I chose to marry him, we weren't allowed to stay together in the company, or we weren't allowed to be on the same ship together. So we made the conscious decision that we would then leave Windstar. So that's what we did. Got married. I then decided to come ashore, and I was a class 1 lecturer at Fleetwood Nautical Campus, where I did most of my formative training anyway. So I taught cadets, I taught foundation degrees, I taught chief officers, shipboard management, I taught masters orals. My speciality was emergency response, ship handling. I also helped run the simulator. You have to be a master with master's experience. So with the simulator, we taught Manchester Ship Canal pilots, we taught the Nigerian pilots, we taught Milford Haven pilots, and we taught various shipping companies various courses. So again, loved it, incredibly diverse. And then we had our son. So at which point we came back to Croyd. I'd never sold Croyd. During all of this time I had Croyd, my house in Croyd. So we came back to Croyd, and we had to do, I think everybody does at that point when they have their first child, you run the finances, don't you? And we decided that I would go back to sea, and my husband, who was working for Steno at the time as an AB, able-bodied seaman, would come home and be home daddy. So when my maternity finished, my son was 8 months old, I then went back to sea. I started back with Steno as a temporary chief officer, night master. And then I actually applied this time for a job, and I received it, and I became the captain of the aggregate dredger Sand Heron. We supplied the south coast of the UK, France, and the Thames. Aggregate dredger is slightly different to what people think of dredgers. Most people will look at a dredger that is clearing channels. They're called clearance dredgers. So that's what most people can see. I was an aggregate dredger, so I went out onto the Crown Estates under our license patches, and we sucked in, as you can see in the photo, we sucked in the aggregate. We sucked in whatever you wanted. So if a customer said to me, I want to have yellow or white pebbles for my driveway, I used to head off to Hastings South 1, you get white pebbles. I would then load 3,000 to 4,000 tons of white pebbles, and I'll bring it back, and it would be processed, and that's what you find in B&Q. Or it goes to the Cemex factory, because Cemex own the ships, and made into cement. So a lot of what you see built, roads, gravels, cement, bricks, a lot of it is marine aggregate, because it's the purest. I mean, I actually used to dredge off here, down at Culver Sand, because it's the purest sand that you can find on the license patches. I was more than happy. 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off, absolutely fine. When I happened to be in Bickerscombe Park one day, husband, child, friends, children, and when somebody asked me, what's my dream job? And I said, well, there's one dream job. I said, but there's only 2 real possibilities. And I said, one's Bideford, Harbourmaster, and the Bideford pilot's job had just actually come vacant. I said, or there's Ilfracombe. And I said, let's be honest, I live in Croyd, Bideford's too far. Yeah. Even though I've shipped to the Antarctic before, but for me, Bideford was too far to get over the bridge. And I said, and Ilfracombe, I said, never going to happen. I said, it's hen's teeth to get, to get the job at Ilfracombe. And the guy said, well, what if I told you the Harbourmaster is coming up for retirement? I said, oh, I'd be very interested. So he gave me a number that I now know is actually this office number. And I popped down and I saw Rob, and we discussed it. And I said, I'm not asking for special treatment. All I'm asking is, can I be kept in the loop? Because I've got to go back to sea. And of course, if I'm away for 3 weeks with no communication, I might miss the deadline. And fair to his word, he forwarded my communication to the council, and I was kept in the loop. And they did send me the application form when it came out. And they did arrange for me to have my interview whilst I was on leave. And for reasons known to themselves, I was then appointed Ilfracombe Harbourmaster in 2018. And my main reason is I've got a quad bike. What more can a harbourmaster want? I have that lovely red quad bike to go around the harbour in. So a quick one of all the things I've talked about. It's coming up. Well, there. So that's basically in my seagoing life where I've covered. I didn't put United Kingdom because the little smiley face actually covered the whole of the United Kingdom, but I have done the whole of the United Kingdom as well. I've circumnavigated the UK and Ireland quite a lot. So as you can see, there's a big space missing. I haven't done Asia and I haven't done Australia. My husband, in fact, is Indonesian Papuan. So I'm heading off to the Indonesian islands in 2 weeks because I decided at that time, all the places I haven't been, I would like to go and actually visit properly. Even though I've been there on a ship, doesn't mean you get to see the places, because some ports were in and out in a day. But absolutely, I did. I love my career in the Merchant Navy, and I would recommend it to anybody wanting to have a life at sea or even just try it. Because the best thing about the Merch is you get a cadetship and you're paid for that cadetship, the apprenticeship, if you want to call it, and you don't have to stay. It's also a very fast track to a master's degree, not Merchant Navy masters, but any master's degree. So the opportunities are all there. So I went from transiting the world. Oh, hang on, got to go back one. Yay. To sorry, this beautiful harbour that we have talked about, Ilfracombe. Now, when I accepted the post, I knew I was going to be harbour master because that's the job. What I wasn't aware of, because I come from the Merchant Navy, was what that actually entailed. So there is the harbour as we see it in reality. Let me do this one. So this is my jurisdiction. This is what I'm actually in charge of. So if you see the red line, that is by the Parliamentary Act, the establishment of Ilfracombe Harbour Authority. That is the harbour jurisdiction. The blue line is where my bylaws cover. So you can see there's quite a differential there between the two. Most people, when they think of my jurisdiction, they only think of the blue line because that's what most people think about, my bylaws. But I have an awful lot of powers and regulations outside that blue line. So the powers and regulations that I have to abide by are these. There's quite a lot of them. So this is my bread and butter. This is what I abide by all the days. This is what all my policies and plans are based upon, which I write as part of my role to ensure the safe navigation of the waterways, safe conduct of all the vessels. But little known to some people is I'm also responsible for the health and safety of every person that steps foot within my jurisdiction. So I also have to deal with the land side of things, obviously all in liaison with the council as well, because they are the harbour authority. So quick précis of where we got to since I started. In 2019, we became the first UK harbour, waterway, port, marina, first in the UK ever to have a robotic drone, a waste shark, which swims around the harbour on its own steam, electric battery, and collects maritime waste. There's no harm to any aquatic life. So bought for us by the WWF, sponsored by Sky Ocean Project. We're a few years down the line now, and I've actually had it refurbed. We now have a larger shark here, and you'll be seeing it out and about again this coming summer. Obviously, 2019, we all know what happened in 2020. So it hasn't been out and about as much as I would have liked it to do. It takes 2 people to launch it, but only 1 person to actually maneuver it. It also has an autonomous function, so I can actually program it from my office here, and it will go on a set course. And when it's in autonomous, it has anti-collision software, So there's a camera at the front and sensors. So if it detects anything in that kind of angle from its bow, it will divert. You know, we've tested that. It's rather quite funky. So again, we became one of 4 ports in the world to have a waste shark at this time. So we joined the ranks of Rotterdam, Cape Town, the Emirates, 2 places in the Emirates, yeah. So Rotterdam, the Emirates, Cape Town, and Ilfracombe were the ones with the waste sharks. Since we've had the waste shark, I've been contacted by multiple harbours and ports: Dublin, New York, Portsmouth military base, Stornoway, various Thames authorities, Plymouth, Southampton. Because we've got it and we have the 2nd highest tidal range in the world, only second to the Bay of Fundy, if it can work in Ilfracombe, it literally can work anywhere. So this kind of waste collection drone is gaining a lot of popularity. And it's quite nice to know that it all kind of started at Ilfracombe, which is nice. We have the school groups come down. This is some of the waste that we've collected in front there. One of my private owners in the background. I've also had WWF Kenya and a few of the other multinational WWFs come down and visit. Kenya now has 2 waste sharks, in fact, over there. But all part of the daily life, helping and escorting and hosting dignitaries and other people from anywhere, really. Due to the strength, the height of our walls and our tides, what is sent with the waste shark, the launching ramp, would not work here. So I had to devise a completely unique launching system for us. And this is what it is. I've got the blue post crane over by the fuel berth, which will give us the most amount of water. And the Royal Marines very kindly built my shark cage. And that's what you can see. They used it as an apprenticeship project, and they built a bespoke aluminium cage for the shark. So all we do now is we wheel it out to the post, clip it onto the crane, and off it goes. And that's the picture there. Because we all realize, as I said before, what happened in 2020. So another thing that we facilitated during that was when we lit up Verity, lit up blue for the NHS, doing all that. When Prime Minister Boris made the announcement, about an hour, half hour to an hour later, I received a call from Border Force saying that, right, you're front line for harbour security. So myself and my deputy were in the next day, and we didn't stop. We were here all the way through all lockdowns through the whole period, because when they closed the airports down, well, they were still trying to get in the country, weren't they? And if you can't come in by air, you're going to come in by water. So all harbours were put on high alert. So all harbours and port workers were frontline all the way through, which was interesting. I think that's all I will say. But we were able to facilitate the lighting up of Verity, which I thought was stunning. If anybody actually saw that at the time, I thought that's my son, by the way, in the bottom picture. And as mentioned, I was the greatest of honours, the Queen's 2021 birthday list. I was nominated and received my MBE for services for the promotion of women at sea. Due to COVID, all of the investitures have been delayed. So I received a message from the palace, and I was given a choice. I could either have my medal presented by an intermediary, the Lord Commander of Devon, so they would give him the medal and give it to me. I could get it by post, and then I'd be invited to a royal garden party, and I'd be allowed to bring 3 guests in instead of the nominal 2, or I could wait. I could wait my turn. So we had a discussion over this and decided to wait. because let's be honest, it's never going to happen again. And the invite came through, and in February of 2022, we went to Windsor. And yes, I had the great honour and pleasure of meeting His Royal Highness Prince William, now the Prince of Wales, and he presented me with my medal. And that's me outside. It's still within Windsor grounds, with my honour. He is such an amazingly lovely gentleman. He is. Puts you at ease. You've got 2 minutes conversation. Puts you at ease straight away. And he knew I was the Ilfracombe Harbourmaster. And because of his time in flying the helicopters, he knows where we are. I invited him and his lovely wife down if they're ever in the area. But so you never know, he might pop in on his way. During the same time, I also got granted a great honour that I was named one of the Women of the Year. And I was taken down to London for the day, for the presentation and everything down there. If anybody's not aware, Women of the Year is national, and they name 400 females a year for various things. And you are Woman of the Year for that year. And I was one of them. Outstanding day. Absolutely outstanding. I mean, we honoured Dame Esther Anson as an exemplary figure. So you're mixing with every other Women of the Year plus past Women of the Year. It will never ever top Windsor. Nothing will, but I think that comes a very close second in my book. Absolutely amazing honours, which I never expected. So on to Harbour Day Job. These are the old toll booths. Anybody that remembers Ilfracombe remembers these. Unfortunately, they did come to the end of their serviceable life. There's the old clock, the old temporary kiosk in the background. So after a modicum of confrontation and an awful lot of work, we managed to commence the demolition beginning of last year. We had already installed the new bespoke kiosks for the commercial operators. So they now have fit for purpose facilities that they never had with the old toll booths. And we finalized it in March this year, opening the roadway, making that a two-way traffic. That's taken before the pedestrian crossing went in. There is now a pedestrian crossing. And what we are now waiting for is the finalization of the archway. So we're having a bespoke archway that's going to sit on those two plinths you can see. And the clock is going to be up in the middle, as it was at the same height as it was when it was on the old toll booths. And they're going to be clinker-shaped hulls, wooden inside, but copper external. So it's going to look actually rather smart. And that's going to form the main entranceway, the walkway through into the harbour. So that's one of the major projects we've been doing. Very close to completion. In the meantime, that's the old pier. What's our pier, but that's the old way that we were fendering. You probably can't see it very well, but we've got the wooden pile fenders, which are behind the big black sausages. They're Yokohama fenders with the tires around it. So I looked at this. The fenders were failing. They had been cut in half. They've been jury rigged, maintenance wise. So I managed to secure some funds and redid all of it. So that is how the pier now looks. I opened up the lower end of First Landing, which is the second tier down, to give an additional landing for the commercial operators. And as you can see, we did it all in high purpose, proper marine fendering. And I changed out the Yokohamas to Yokohama sling fenders, because what was happening when the Oldenburg came in, they're there for the Oldenburg, because of the old ones had tires. When the night, they have to have 2 people on board at all times overnight on the Oldenburg. It's part of the safety requirements. Well, they were clinking and scratching against the ship's hull. So I changed them out to sling fenders. and they get to have a nice bit of rest as long as everything's fine. I also did the same for the cove and the fuel berth. That's what it used to look like. You can see on the 3 to the right of the ladder where the trawlers had been cheese gratering the fenders away because of their little fins they have on the bottom of their vessels. So I secured some more funds, and this is what it looks like now. When I say secured funds, I'm talking about I secured them from the Maritime Management Organisation, the MMO. So cost to the council, the Harbour Authority, has only been 25% of the overall cost. My funding, actually, I secured 75% funding for all the works that I am showing you. We ran a trial in collaboration with the police, Devon and Cornwall Police, and for a time last year we had our very own PCSO Maritime designated to the harbour. The trial has now ended, and lots of lessons learned. A lot of good and some not so good. That's why we have a trial. So unfortunately, we won't be having the presence here this season, but we are working towards a more permanent solution to help me manage, what's a good word? The miscreants, those that jump, swim, dive, cause mayhem in the harbour. I have a bylaw against swimming, jumping, diving in the harbour for very good reason. It's dangerous, especially with moving vessels along the pier. That's one of the things that we managed to accomplish last year. Managed to again secure funding again through the MMO, and the fishermen who are over on the cove side of the harbour, their main stores are the big white stores over there, managed to secure, and we put in a toilet for them all. So that's a his and her bespoke custom made toilet cubicle, which they did not have before. They used to have to traipse all the way down to the cove, S&P Fish, or all the way over to the pier. So looking at welfare, I also managed to secure funding, and I put in a bespoke CCTV system. So I now have an awful lot of coverage across the harbour, which comes as a surprise to some people when the police knock on their door with crystal clear footage of what they've been up to. Okay. And believe me, they have come in very, very handy and useful. As part of my legislative requirements, we come under the Oil Contingency Plan Act. So I have to have regular drills. Every 3 years, we have to do a big exercise where we bring in our external responders that would come in if we have a major spill here. This is the one that we had in March last year with my 2P responders, with our 2P tier 2 responders as well. That's Ambipar bringing all their equipment in, and we do different scenarios. I have to do 3 drills a year, one major one every 3 years. 2021, we did a combination with the local services. We brought the fire brigade down. We had the police involved. We had our 2Ps. We had our tier 2 responders. And the scenario this particular time was that the Oldenburg was on fire, which the Oldenburg is a merchant vessel, has to do so many main drills as well. So we combined it all one into an overall harbour emergency drill. That was quite good. We also enlist the help with the RNLI to help deploy, because I may have a quad bike, but I don't have a boat. So I have no way of getting out on the water myself. So I basically have to commandeer any available vessel. And this is the sort of extent of the things that if we had a real spill, you'd be looking at. Day to day, you will find us out on the harbour digging holes. We're actually looking for chain. We're inspecting the ground chain and ensuring that the moorings are sound. We're inspecting the kayaks under our compounds, ensuring that they are in good keeping and all the licenses are up to date, especially when somebody gives up their kayak bay, replacing them. Picking up dead fish that gets dropped by the trawlerman, by the box load. There is now actually a cost. If they don't come down and pick it up themselves, and myself or my deputies have to do it, it's £50 a box. Because I have been down at 6 in the morning picking up dead fish because of the tides. Doesn't happen very often anymore, so that's quite good. We are inspecting mooring chains to ensure that they're adequate for the size of vessel. Here's one particular picture where it isn't. So we have to go back to the owner, liaise with the owner, ensure that they act quite promptly, because any vessel breaking a chain in the harbour can damage multiple others. And that's obviously part of my job, to ensure all is safe. Here's one, for example. We came in one morning and the leg that holds that boat up had broken. So it's get hold of the owner, get them down, make sure it's all safe. We checked the chains. We knew the boat wasn't going anywhere, but he needed to come down and fix his leg. So we do harbour inspections every day. We only close for Christmas and New Year, and that's when we come in every other day. But we now have the cameras on our mobiles, so we can still keep a check on the harbour. General damage. This was caused by a visiting yacht tying their stern rope actually to the ladder post and then pulling away without untying it. So he pulled the whole thing out. Management of the lobster pots in the winter, where they go, how we can best facilitate. Not forgetting there are hundreds of them. It's not just a few. There are literally hundreds of them, and all by different potters. Maintaining the fuel services. Without the red diesel allocation here, we wouldn't have any commercial operators, and the fishermen would find it very hard. So that's daily checks, periodic maintenance, and fixing any damage that gets done as soon as possible. So the closest repair unit to us that can repair our fuel system is actually over in Wales, South Wales. So when somebody breaks this, my call out is South Wales. They are excellent, but that is actually the best and closest. To the management of wildlife. This is Spearmint. She is a lovely, lovely seal, held in captivity for a while under rehab, and she's the longest seal actually held for rehab. And due to this, I don't know if you can actually hear any of this, but anyway, she likes to come back. They release her and then she comes back. So every now and again, Spearmint rocks up on the harbour beach at low water, and I have to ensure that the public don't go and interfere with her. So one of our jobs is to, basically cordon off Spearmint. So from live mammals to dead. We do get the occasional dead animal coming into the harbour. This particular one was a cow. And again, we have to facilitate the safe removal. Abattoir truck liaison with the farmer. So this was done actually very, very early in the morning for obvious reasons. To maintenance. So this is Old Keyhead stores before. This is last year and after. So we own all the premises on the harbour. So this is with our sitting tenants, to ensure that what we are renting is adequate for the job. So there's a lot of harbour maintenance that is required. We are also an official flagpole. So any official notices of bereavement, it has to come down to half-mast. Under protocol, from announcement to half-mast, I have 10 minutes to get that flag to half-mast. Obviously, as we're aware, we've had quite a few in the last 2 years, which has been quite dreadful. But it's an official flagpole, and I will only bring down the flag to half-mast for official reasons. And I will also do that for any bereavement within the boating community. If your boat is in this harbour and you unfortunately pass, I will honour you by bringing the flag down to half-mast for a certain hour, or normally when the funeral concierge comes through and then out again. But they're the only reasons I will lower the flagpole to half-mast, the flag itself. Obviously, the two biggest annual things: boat lifting, boat in and out. Quite an event, and we use Nick Sampson, and he's very, very good at it with his gentlemen. But the organisation, we start organising boats out in September. In fact, August, back end of August, to be lifted at the end of October. That's how long it takes to actually formalise the plans and get it done, and put all the fencing out, because all the fencing has to be done by me and my team, and there's 3 of us, so quite a large area to cover. On to the most recent biggest project, which is the Water Sports Centre. So I've just got a few photos showing the continuance, how we started. About halfway through. The discoloration you see at Larkstone Cove isn't any concrete leaching. It's actually just a disturbance of the seabed, and we get that quite regularly throughout the whole harbour. So there's nothing of any concern. It looks bad, but it's just sand moving. And this is the nearly finished part of the main build, and we've cleared the kiln. It's progressing very well. As I look across my office now, the seawall's finally being finished, the slipway's going in at the next springs, and we will be well on our way, looking good to be opening up prior to this main season, if not before. So the water sports is well on its way. And that's pretty much where we've got to so far in my life as a harbour master.